Well, I appreciate you having me on, Jeff. I want to start off just introducing myself here. My name's Tyler Johns. I'm the offensive coordinator and offensive line coach at Tiffin University here in Ohio. 2019 GMAC champs, something, I've been very fortunate to be part of an incredible staff up here. I'm extremely thankful for the guys that I get to go work with every day. And, we feel like we're building something special up here at Tiffin. So I want to share just a little bit tonight, kind of our offensive line development, setting the standard as a unit and just that culture building piece, and then get into what we do on the field in terms of just some drill work and how that all translates into the game. So we'll throw some film together, all those kind of things. But I appreciate you having me on, and this close to Christmas especially. I'm very thankful for this opportunity. I want to just make sure, I say this, thank you for what you do for us too. The Blockers O-Line Academy, I think it's a fantastic resource. I love that really a lot of the same things we preach in the unit are really what you've kind of built your foundation on of, hey, we're going to get really good at the fundamentals here. There's a bunch of different ways that we could attack this thing, but building that foundation with these kids, and the proof's in the pudding for you. I think I got on there today. You've had over 20 offensive linemen go on to play at Division I schools. As a 4-year at West Virginia, I know those kids are learning from the best. And so thank you so much for what you do here in our state. And obviously for me, being that being my recruiting area, I love it. I love getting down there and recruiting that part of the state. So that's really important for us up here. Okay, so I'll go ahead and dig into the first section, building the unit. Okay, I think this is a really neat part of the process as a position coach. For me, as an O-line coach, I take a lot of pride in that this is what you get to put your stamp on and kind of make your own little section of the team, right? So I think it's really important that as a coach, you set the identity and you ask and demand your players to buy into what that identity is, okay? I believe that it can be anything that you want it to be, and it needs to really be a reflection of who you are as a coach, okay? Here at Tiffin, our offensive line, we're the AKBs, okay? That gives those guys something to gravitate to. I think one of the coolest parts of coaching the offensive line is the different backgrounds and cultures and just different life experiences that come into that room. I believe this wholeheartedly, that your offensive line is going to be one of the most diverse units that you have on a football team. And so to give those guys something that they can all grab onto, it's kind of that military idea of, hey, everything you wore for the last 18, 20 years, right? When you walk through that door, you're now a Marine. Okay. And so it just gives those guys something that they can go ahead and grab onto, right? I think it's important that it's not an empty term. Okay. Our guys, man, to call themselves AKBs is really important. Okay. I steal this. I use the example, right? When you hear somebody, introduce themselves as a Navy SEAL or an Army Ranger, there's a little bit of respect that comes with that title. That's something that those guys grab onto. And as soon as you hear that Navy SEAL term, right? Oh man, this is a guy that's gone through it, right? Okay, so for us with the AKBs, really what that means to us is that we want our players to exemplify the following traits, okay? Number 1, toughness, right? Number 2 is grit. Number 3 is being an elite competitor, okay? Number 4, this is something I grabbed onto from my college coach, Corey Allen, over at the University of Findlay. Does a fantastic job with the offensive line over there. And I remember as a player, one of the things every meeting he challenged us to punch the clock, right? To be hard hat and lunch pail guys, okay? That blue collar attitude, that's something I think is so important with what we do up front, okay? That takes us into what the unit focus is, okay? I think that there's certain mantras that you have to indoctrinate your kids with where that gets burnt into their mind. You look at it as a coach, and I think we all have this tendency that as the years go, we add more and we go deeper into, you know, a little this culture piece or a little deeper into that, or we can expand on this. And 6, 7 years down the road, you have so much stuff that these poor freshmen that walk through your door, they're so overwhelmed, you know, and just staying disciplined enough as the position coach to not let your culture overgrow itself, right? To keep those couple things that you want your players to really grab a hold of, okay? And for us, those two mantras, first are to create a nightmare, right? Second is to get comfortable being uncomfortable, all right? Starting with that create a nightmare mantra, that's really our reminder as offensive linemen to maintain that attacking mindset. You know, I think it's something we talk about with those kids is, hey, look, you know, the product that you put on film, right, you get to determine what that defensive lineman that's studying you, what his whole week is about, right? That's a lot of power. You get to control somebody else's mood all week, right? You go after it, you put a really good product on film, and now that poor kid's watching your film and looking at it like, man, I got to go up against this guy. And man, I thought Saturday was going to be fun and I was looking forward to it. Man, that guy gets after it play after play, right? I mean, it really is. You create a nightmare for that guy, and it starts, you know, a week before the game's ever played. Okay. The next piece, just getting comfortable being uncomfortable. I think that's something that we believe in as a staff. We really want to challenge our players and get them out of their comfort zone, not just on the football field, but really in life. You know, for us, everything's a little bit bigger than just what we do on the field. You know, we believe that challenging these guys to be the best versions of themselves socially and academically, as well as being a football player, is how to help them grow to reach their ultimate potential. Okay. Now with this, right, I think that trust becomes a huge, huge factor in it, right? Your players have to trust you to push their buttons, right? And if you haven't built that trust, now as you start pushing those buttons, right, you start to get some resistance from it, okay? And so building that trust within your unit is going to be a huge, huge piece in everything that we do as the coach, okay? That takes us kind of that finding balance in the room, right? Again, we already mentioned that you have all of these different personalities and there's just so much diversity that you have in an offensive line room. You know, we give them that AKB, right? Something to go ahead and grab a hold of and make their own. But I do still think that it's important that you let those individual personalities show, right? If we're all learning from each other and we're all taking each other's shared experience and growing from that, right? Then I think there needs to be a little bit of time built in to go ahead and see those personalities come out, right? That to me, you know, we would call that building the brotherhood, you know, really making sure that these guys are getting to know each other, okay? I think it's huge in the off season, right? You don't want to force the issue, but I think one of the coolest things that I've seen here in the last 2 years at Tiffin is the way our offensive line went from, you know, being a couple, you know, these two guys hang out over here, these couple guys hang out over there, and watching that brotherhood really grow and seeing that offensive line unit grow together, okay? One thing that we do, and this certainly doesn't have to be something that you implement, this is just our way of doing it, okay? We'll take the first 2 or 3 minutes of a meeting and we kind of just use that time to grow and learn from each other, whatever it is, right? Even if it's as dumb as having somebody stand up and tell a joke. You know, I think our receivers coach, Coach Joe Horn, does a fantastic job with this. You know, he starts every single meeting with some kind of competition, you know, whether it's an arm wrestling competition or crumbling up a piece of paper and seeing who can throw it in the trash can from further away. You know, his mindset is, hey, get these guys to compete all the time. I think that's awesome, right? You know, we want our guys to do something, the same thing, whether it's a competition or somebody telling a joke, somebody standing up and telling a story, whatever it is, okay? Now with that, I think you build in, right, there's gotta be time to flip that switch, okay? Now we physically do this in the meeting room. When I stand up and we're joking around, having a good time, and I go over and I flip the light switch off, that clicks for our players. They see that, okay, hey, I got to switch gears now. Now it's all football, right? What I've found with the group of kids that we have is that physical turning off of the light. It locks those guys in. Okay, it just serves as a reminder. And I think it's important that as the coach, you really be the example of this for your guys. You know, if you're going to implement something like this, don't storm into the meeting room one day mad about something and expect the meeting, you know, everybody to be quiet and start the meeting right now. Okay. On the flip side, once you do flip the switch, right, don't be the coach that's standing there still screwing around. Okay. You know, if you want your kids to be able to flip that switch, well, then you better do it as a coach, right? When it's time to be on, be on. Okay. All right. Now, this is just kind of how we set the standard for our room, what we do. You know, I don't know that everybody would agree with this. That's okay. You know, seems to work for the guys that we have. I think the first part of setting a standard is that you have to enforce it at all times. Okay. You know, that builds consistency. Consistency builds trust. Now, with that, I'm very clear with our kids, right? They've each got their own personal bank account, right? So it's not, you know, fair doesn't necessarily have to mean equal in what we do. Okay. For us, right, fair says that, hey, this guy, you know, he's great in the classroom. He's awesome on the field, does everything the right way. You know, every time I call him, he picks up the phone. Well, shoot, he oversleeps his 8 a.m., right? We're still going to enforce the standard. That player's still going to have repercussions for his action. Absolutely. Okay. But I'm probably not going to give him a hard time for the next week over it, right? He's made a lot of deposits into his bank account. He takes one withdrawal. Okay. We'll get over that, right? You take the same situation and flip it a little bit. You have a guy that's notoriously late for class, right? Has already missed 2 or 3 lifts that semester, whatever it is, right? That same guy oversleeps his 8 a.m. Well, yeah, you know, we're going to enforce the standard, and I'm probably going to give him a hard time for a week or so, right? He hasn't made nearly as many deposits into his account for him to be able to come in and make that withdrawal, okay? So that's where we come with fair doesn't necessarily mean equal. I think that's a pretty easy one for your guys to get on board with when you explain it and kind of lay it out there for them, okay? Our O-line rules, we don't go into a ton of depth. To be honest, I think it's important, you know, if you're setting all these rules and it's hard for your guys to not screw up, then I think you got a problem, right? I think you want to put your guys in situations to be successful, okay? You know, our first rule, and really this is kind of your catch-all, right, is protect the brand, okay? This quote, I had the opportunity to work under Coach Tim Beckman at the University of Illinois. This was one of his quotes he had all over the building. This was actually from his time as a grad assistant at Auburn under Coach Pat Dye. The image of one reflects the image of all, okay? You know, and it's as simple as this, right? And I probably oversimplify it with our kids. Hey, you know, be a normal person, right? You know, park in between the parking space, right? Don't make your own space. I know that's our head coach's big one, right? You know, all those kind of things. Just be a normal person, right? Understand that you represent a lot other people than just yourself, okay? And that the image that you present is the way that our team is seen, okay? Be coachable. This one seems a little harsh, right? We don't have the time for your opinion on the field, right? And it's not that I don't value my players' opinion in any regard, right? It's that if we've got, you know, I think our defense is pretty darn good. So there's a lot of times I got 3 plays to make the corrections from an entire series, right? Well, I don't have time to discuss with little Joey, you know, that the Sam came off the edge and then, you know, no, well, he went in the B gap and all that, right? Now, this I think is a huge, huge important piece of this, okay? There's going to be times where I see it and, man, I thought that Sam came off the edge and it should have been the tackle that slid out there, right? Then you go and you look at the film. Oh, no, hey, that kid was right. You know, that Sam went B gap. Okay, that should have been the guard over there, right? Well, if I went and jumped that tackle out on the field in front of his whole unit, right? Well, then I'm going to make sure that the next time that we're together as a unit, we're in the meeting room, that, hey, I'm publicly, right? Hey, man, I know I got on you. I screwed up. When I went back and saw that, you were absolutely right. That should have been Joey that slid over there, not Johnny, okay? I promise you, your players are going to respect you a heck of a lot more when it's not, you know, you jump them in front of a bunch of people, and then you go pull them over to the side. Hey, Joey, I'm sorry. I screwed up. Don't tell anybody, right? When you're up front and honest in front of your guys, I promise you they'll respect you for it, and you're going to build that trust with them, okay? Hey, the next one, like any other coach in America, be on time, right? We say it all the time. Early is on time, right? When it's time for that meeting to start, we got to get going, okay? I already know that I'm going to waste the first 2 or 3 minutes of that meeting building the unit, okay? I can't waste another 5 or 6 with dead time in there, okay? And then lastly, hey, respect the game, okay? This goes to the core values of our football program: effort, compete, and Kaizen, okay? Effort in our program, we define as 4 to 6, A to B, right? I think we've all heard that term through, you know, the Urban Meyer stuff, right? Compete, we define as laser focus on the present moment, okay? And then Kaizen is continual improvement, right? You look at our program, right? The ultimate goal of our program is not to win a national title, okay? The ultimate goal of our program is for every one of our players to become the best version of themselves, okay? We feel that if we become the best version of ourselves, that part of that process, right, is to win a national title, okay? But we are hunting becoming the best version of ourselves every day, okay? So having the respect for the game to attack those 3 areas, then, you know, with the O-line, never let a quarterback or running back get up off the ground on their own. Never let somebody get knocked into the opponent's bench and don't go get them out. To me, you know, this game has done a lot of great stuff for a lot of people. I can't get behind, you know, letting your quarterback get hit and not going over and picking them up off the ground. I got a big problem with that, okay? That's a quick way to not play a whole lot of snaps of football for me. So, and again, right, this is, you know, these aren't rules that you have to implement. This is just what we do, okay? This is just what we do. All right, a couple things here that I do take a minute or two and hit on. This is what we're looking for in recruiting, okay? As I go and evaluate offensive linemen, the number one trait that I'm looking for is accountability, okay? Can I count on you on and off the field? If I can count on you, we'll build on the rest of it, okay? The next piece are those get to versus got to guys, right? The guys that really love what they do, they're passionate about it. It's easy for them to kind of check their baggage at the door when it's been a rough day and they're locked in, okay? Character and coachability, huge pieces for us to hit on. A lot of times, you know, those are areas that as your players currently get to know some of these recruits, right? A lot of times they're the guys that can give you a little more insight onto their attitude and their character. You know, we've heard it. I just read a story this week with Matt Campbell over at Iowa State, right? You know, hey, if your current players say, we don't like that guy, he's not a good fit for our program, I don't care how talented you are, we ain't bringing you in, okay? So that's something I think is very, very important. And it's a big piece of why we involve our current players in the process, in the recruiting process, okay? Connectivity, you know, I think that's a part of trust building, right? Are you a guy that when you walk into the room, you give off energy, people feed off of you, right? Or are you the guy that are you the drain, right? When you walk in, do you just suck the air out of the room? Okay. Obviously, we want those guys that have some juice to them, give off that energy. They're guys that you can feed off of. Okay. Honor, mental toughness, tenacity, I think are all big pieces of it. You know, things that I like to see in an offensive lineman. These are also things that we're going to work, you know, every day to go ahead and build. You see under tenacity there, you know, some of those same program level core values with the laser focus and the relentless effort. Those are things that we certainly look for through the recruiting process. Okay. that kind of finishes what I wanted to talk about in terms of unit building stuff. Okay. And I wanted to now take and shift this more to developing the unit on the field. Okay. Shifting out of some of the philosophy pieces into some of our drill work and how that drill work translates over to the field. Okay. The first piece of this is what we do here to try to help our young men, really have a clear understanding of what we're trying to get out of them as coaches. So what we do is we break down all of our run game and pass game skills that I want to see through drill work. I break it down into 3 sections. Okay. This is just something that I've picked up along the way, right? Typically, people are able to learn in multiples of 3, right? So, you break things down into 3 different sections. It's usually pretty easy for guys to follow along with. Okay. So for us, we break down our run game into a posture and movement phase. Okay. So that's your stance and then that initial movement off the ball. Next, we have our strike phase, and then we have our finish phase. Okay. In the pass game, same deal, 3 phases. You've got your stance and posture and that initial set, right? Then your strike phase, and then the movement and finish phase in pass pro. Okay. Those are the views. Again, make them your own, keep it simple. I think that this is just a good reference point for you and your kids to come back to. Okay. And then the last piece, this is something that someone told me once, and it's absolutely true, right? You got to be creative. I know as O-line coaches, we get a little bit of bonus individual time, right? But it's never enough. I'll die on that hill, every year that I always want more individual time, right? So you got to be creative and be able to combine some of these drills and really at the end of the day, maximize what you want out of it, right? I'm very, very fortunate. We have a graduate assistant, Ryan Oliver, is a fantastic offensive line coach, okay? Has done it at the high school level for a number of years, has now done it at the college level for a couple of seasons. He does awesome. It allows me to really almost create some of those circuit training type things, hey, you're going to go from O to D in this drill, and then D is going to go to O and Coach Ollie's drill. And, next thing you know, you've got 15 offensive linemen all moving around at the same time instead of 2 doing the drill and 15 standing behind you. Now, like I'm not foolish enough to believe that everybody has, all these resources and all this help. But if it's the one-man show, still you got to try to be as creative as you can and combine a couple different skills to really maximize your individual time. Okay. This is kind of what this chart will look like. Our players will get this in their O-line manual each year. Okay, this certainly isn't an all-encompassing drill list for us. These are the ones that we're going to go through tonight, if that's okay. All right, and what we do here is we just break it down, right? We list the drill and then say what phases that it's going to work on. All right, yeah, this becomes a resource for you as a coach and for your players, right? You start talking to a kid, hey, I really want you to improve in the strike phase, right? Well, now he can go and look at this list and say, all right, tomorrow, when we do the fight pressure drill, right, I'm going to really focus on my strike in that, right? Because that's what we're trying to get out of this drill, okay? This is Coach Garrick McGee when we were at the University of Illinois, asked us all as coaches to put one of these together. I promise you, this is one of my favorite things that I've ever done, is just organizing it all onto paper and having that reference to always come back to. This has made my life a million times easier as I'm trying to play an individual. Okay. Same thing in the pass game, right? Again here, not every drill that we're going to do, these are going to be the ones that we'll go through today. And I'll go through them fairly quickly. That way this thing doesn't turn into a, 3-hour meeting, right? My wife would kill me if she has to miss any of the Steelers games. So now we'll keep rolling here. Okay. The first drill we're going to get into is our med ball get off progression. I'm not a huge believer in doing a bunch of drill work that doesn't marry up with a skill that you're going to directly do in a game, okay? There are a couple things. There's going to be, I think, 3 drills that you'll see through this that we won't necessarily have game clips tied right behind. That's because I do believe that these couple drills are developmental enough that they don't necessarily have to translate something right into a game rep, okay? This med ball get off progression, you know, we use this as part of our warm-up progression. It's an everyday drill for us. It kind of accomplishes some run and pass game. And then what you'll see here is that before each drill, we'll have a slide pulled up. Again, this goes right into these guys' O-line manual. And so what we'll do is we'll produce this kind of video install for all the drills for them. And it gives them a reference. So, you know, as they hear different coaching points on the field, they can come back, find those coaching points, and find the drill that it necessarily applies to. Okay. All right. So getting right into the drill work. The first thing that we're going to do here, we're going to start with this med ball down on the ground, and we're going to start on one knee. Okay. This was a drill I picked up at the convention a couple years back during one of the drill sessions down in the main vendor area there. Okay. We use these med balls. These are about 15 pounds there. Okay. And really what these med balls are doing is serving the purpose of making sure that our core stays tight, right? You know, we're trying to avoid being waist benders through this. Okay. What you'll see here, we're looking for that straight line in that knee. You know, we would like to see that knee tucked slightly inside that foot. I think our center over here on the right in the black long sleeve is a little bit better than our tackle here. He's normally our left tackle, so you'll see as drills kind of move to that left side, it'll look a little more comfortable with him. But, you know, just that initial get off, all we're really focusing here is loading up that instep of that foot and really creating good drive off, okay? Now in this drill, we'll just normally work on about a 45-degree angle. You can set different angles, all those kind of things. Typically in this portion, we'll just go one shot on a 45 each way, okay? So you just kind of see them, you know, you're having to lift that med ball and not bend and break your core down through it as you start. Okay, we'll give you one example here going the other way. Okay, you kind of see the same deal. Probably a little better example here. One of our other tackles has that knee a little bit further inside the foot like we like. Okay, they're able to create some good drive up out of there as part of your warm-up progression. Okay, from there what we'll do is we'll bring them up to a 2-point stance and we'll hold that med ball between our thighs and really work on squeezing those adductor muscles. Okay, that's a really small muscle chain through the inside of your leg there. But as an offensive lineman, that's a muscle that you have to develop. Okay, that's really where a lot of our stance building is going to come from. Okay. So what we'll do is we'll get those guys up and we'll have them just squeeze that med ball. It's really overemphasizing that lower body triangle. You see here, our left tackle actually does a really nice job of it. You can kind of see the triangle that's created in his lower body as he squeezes that med ball. Okay. The reason that we look to create that triangle, it's a physics deal. Okay. You look at structures as you build structures, right? Triangles are always going to be stronger shapes than the square, right? So we want to see that triangle in the lower body, right? Versus, you know, a guy that's very squatty bodied, you know, straight legged in his stance, right? Because what you'll see is in pass protection, this guy that's a little more square, that knee's going to open up, right? Everything's going to be a little more roll over out of your stance. Where with this triangle, you can really lead with that foot much, much easier, okay? And now we'll just set different angles. You know, it's this first example, we're kind of on that mid-zone 45 angle. You can work a tight zone, more vertical angle, a outside zone, really, you know, turn and run. We'll just set a couple different ones. We'll do this drill a couple times each way, set a few different angles with it. Okay. Then we'll flip gears and we'll go into kind of pass pro mode with it. We're going to start very similar to how we did the run game. We'll be down on that knee and we'll have that foot loaded up. Okay. I'm actually going to go to the next clip. You see a little better example here of both these guys having that knee inside of that toe. Okay. And so now you watch this young man in the yellow here, and you're going to get a really good example of loading up that foot and driving off and catching that back foot and building a block just like a sprinter would with that back foot, having some force into the ground with that back foot. That's going to ultimately help us as we go to make contact with that outside hand. Okay. Again, using that med ball to really prevent them from bending at the waist as they set, really getting those shoulders back out of the set. Okay. I think our left tackle here in the yellow is a pretty good example of what we're looking for there. You know, shoulders stay back, shoulders aren't leaning forward. He's driving, sticking that left foot in the ground pretty good. Okay. So that's kind of your med ball warm-up progression. A lot of times our guys will just get out to the field early and kind of go through that on their own as they're warming up. That takes us into a 6-point punch. This is something I like to do early in camp. Certainly not an everyday drill for us, but I do think this is always a good one if you're working with young guys, especially who maybe don't know what it completely feels like to really get their hips all the way through a block. Okay. We're looking at the strike and the finish phase in this drill, right? There's really not a whole lot of movement to it. You'll see we're going to actually start down in that 6-point stance with the toes curled, knees, and then fingertips in the ground, right? We'll sit back on our heels here. And what we're looking for in this drill is as we give him the go call, right? We want to see those hands really working up on the angle to strike, not necessarily up and then out, okay? What you'll have a lot of times with those guys that want to work up and out, that's where you get your clampers, okay? When I'm working right from the ground and hitting on the angle, right, what you have a lot of times, our guys are able to keep those hands a little bit tighter, okay? Some of our guys, you know, we'll even teach a clap punch too, right? As they come off the ground, they're snapping those hands together as they fire their hands, okay? Just whatever we need to do to get those hands to not come up and then out in that clamping motion, okay? And then as the drill finishes, we're looking for that full extension, okay? So you see this tackle here is able to really get that body fully extended, okay? And then we've got another good clip for you here. This is our center working it, okay? And you can see, right, if you're really getting to that full extension, you know, you are going to kind of do that Superman pose as you rock forward a little bit, okay? Again, just a good drill for us to get those hands timed up and to really feel those hips work all the way through, okay? I'm going to show you an example from a game last year against Hillsdale College. You're going to be looking at our right guard here. You know, again, right, you're going to see those hands really work, you know, not up and then out clamping, right? He brings those hands really from the ground right up on the angle to his fit, okay? And now you'll see him as he's trying to root this one out down near the goal line, right? You really see him get those hips all the way extended, which are what's allowing him that little last ditch bit of effort, right, to really strain and finish that block, okay? You know, you get that example of those hips really getting all the way through, okay? Next is our tick drill. We'll use this tick drill both as a front side and a back side drill. This is used more for our reach and cutoff blocks, okay? Essentially what we're working here is just we're slowing and breaking everything down into a couple phases, right? So that these kids can really feel themselves do everything right, okay? So what'll happen, and you'll see this drill, our center, he'll work his first step, right? Then he'll reload. Then he'll work his first 1-2, right? Reload. And then he'll go through the full rep, okay? Now, if your guys are doing this drill right, when they go to just that first step, you should see enough force being put through that first step that they kind of stumble into a second, right? And then when you go your 1-2, right, they should almost stumble into a third step if they're really putting the force into the ground that you want them to. Okay, so you see that first step, right? He's working that thing. He's trying to open that foot. The reason that we call this the tick drill, right? We're going to use these tick marks and put that foot just inside of it, okay? That gives us a visual representation on the field to make sure that as I open this step that I'm gaining depth and width, right? What we try to avoid is that big bucket step, right? Where I grab depth, but I end up with that foot back in here, right? And I've now wasted a lot of movement, okay? You know, that's one of the things that I think is so important as an offensive lineman is to have efficiency within your movement, right? To maximize the space you cover in what we ask you to do, okay? So you see that tick mark, you can see himself, right? He'll take that first step. He can look down at the ground and say, yep, okay, I cleared that mark, right? Now he knows my first step's good. Okay, then we'll reload it. Now we'll go our 1-2, right? 1-2. And now he can assess right there, right? Hey, is my first step still good? Yep, I didn't bucket step, okay? My backside leg, did I get it through the crotch? Yes, okay? Now mentally, he's just seen himself do the drill right twice, right? Before you've even taken a full rep, okay? We'll reload them. We'll go the third rep of it here, okay? So 1, and we'll go 1-2. And then we'll bring it back and we'll go the full rep. And now this is where the defender will move with him a little bit. That way that offensive player just can really own the angle that he sets for himself. And he's able to, you know, check all of his fits, right? Hey, do I have my backside hand on that backside breastplate? Are my eyes attacking the aiming point that I'm looking for, right? How are my feet? All those things, right? He can evaluate every stage of it, right, by himself, right? Just using these landmarks on the field, okay? Now, I do want to just take a minute here, and this is, again, just, you know, something that I believe in, one of my pitches here, okay? I think it's important as offensive line coaches that we do what we can to try to take the head out of the game as much as possible, okay? I'm a believer that you know, you don't have to beat your head in there snap after snap to be a really effective offensive lineman, okay? So one of the ways that I'm trying to prevent that, right, is we've really eliminated the language of, you know, hey, get your head across, get your head to the aiming point, right? What we'll say instead is get your eyes to the aiming point, okay? Now, I just use that as a little, I know it's a small detail, but it's something that I do think is important that we try to give these guys, you know, is little reference to putting their head into the block, okay, as possible. I know that's a small detail. That's certainly something that I still catch myself all the time, but I do think it is important as O-line coaches that we find ways to be a little more efficient to keep our players safe, okay? All right, just an example here. You know, now this is a tackle doing it with backside footwork. You know, we had our center there was kind of using it more as a play side drill. Now you'll see the same drill, right? It's all going to be done backside, okay? So he takes his first, right? Now he's going to get his 1-2, really gets through the crotch pretty good with that second step. And now he'll work that full rep. Again, right? Attack your aiming spot and then use that defender, have them work with you, get the feel for owning angles, okay? Own the angle. All right, here's your example of it in a game. You're going to look at the right tackle here. What you've got is a little combination here going to the left. Just looking at the footwork of this tackle, okay? You see that efficiency, that would be your tick drill, right? Taking that first step, really opening it, you know, not bucket stepping underneath himself, gets that backside leg through the crotch. We'd like for the right guard to be a little bit thinner on this so that tackle has a little more space to fit. But you can see here kind of the efficiency of the footwork there with that, okay? Next, I mentioned we got a couple of these drills, right, that don't necessarily relate right to the football field. This one is one of my all-time favorites. I stole this from Coach Hallett up at Toledo, working his camps the last couple of years. I think this is a fantastic drill. You know, what we're really emphasizing in this drill is the posture through the movement phase, okay? So here's what this drill looks like. I'm going to show you two different angles here, okay? First is this angle straight from behind. So what we're essentially creating is about 600 pounds of pressure on this one offensive lineman, right? Now, again, okay, this ain't one of those, hey, we're going to ask our center to go take on two guys, nothing like that, right? This is just a drill that it lets me put a ton of resistance against that guy and see if he's going to maintain his posture throughout the drill, right? Okay, so what we're looking for before we start the drill are some key things in our posturing, okay? First is the feet. We'll just start kind of the ground up here, if that's okay. Starting with the feet. I want to see those feet both turned out slightly, okay? The reason for that, as we turn those feet out biomechanically, it's going to make it a little bit easier for us to keep those knees inside, right? And to really squeeze with those adductor muscles, okay? It's going to make things a little bit easier. What you'll see is as guys get those feet going straight forward, they're going to have more of a tendency to get up on their toes, okay? We want to try to keep as much surface area in the ground. So we're going to turn those feet out slightly. Okay, next you're going to look at the knees. You see a pretty good example here. You know, if you drop a straight line down, right, the knees are both inside of the ankles, okay? You start to see some of that lower body triangle that we're trying to create there, right? Okay. From there, we move up, we take a peek at the elbows, right? You see pretty good example here. The elbows are pretty well tucked away, you know, very, very little of them can be seen from behind. And then really the last piece of it, I'm going to make sure that their eyes are up and then just check and see if their shoulder blades are squeezed, okay? The squeeze of the shoulder blades is a huge piece of this, right? What that does, as I squeeze my shoulder blades, and you can really feel it just sitting there, okay? If you take those shoulders and roll them forward, you can feel yourself create that curve in your spine, okay? Now, if I roll my shoulder blades back, I can feel myself putting that spine into alignment, okay? No different than a ram as they go to hit heads, right? What allows them to have that impact, right, is that their spine goes into alignment, so all that force enters in one end and out the other, right? We're trying to create the same thing by putting our spine in alignment. That allows any force, right, to travel down and out our tailbone, where any curve that I'm going to have in my spine, right, as that gets compacted, right, you start to get those herniated discs, right? All the problems that every offensive lineman's always had, right? The lower back injuries, the mid back injuries. You're going to take a lot of those out if you really get on your guys about squeezing those shoulder blades, okay? Here's the drill now. What we'll do is we'll start him. He's just going to kind of walk it forward, right? Okay, now you'll see I'll try to, you know, I pause the film, right? Then you go back and you evaluate it, okay? Well, I still see those feet turned out, right? I still see the knee inside the ankle. I still see the shoulder blade squeezed, and I still see the elbows tucked, right? That's a pretty good rep for me, okay? That's a pretty good rep. It's going to fall apart a little bit. Again, remember, he's pushing against, you know, two people, okay? It's going to fall apart a little bit. As close as you can get it to staying the same, you're going to like the result of that, okay? Take you through just kind of the other angle so you see all the bends. You kind of have that good 45-degree bend in the ankles, a little less of a bend through the knees, and then through the hips, another good 45-degree bend, okay? This is one you get a good example. You can really see that spine all being in alignment versus, right, having any kind of curve to the spine that you'd have with those shoulder blades not squeezed. Okay, same deal, right? You can walk them forward, you pause the film, and you're still going to see those same good bends throughout the drill, okay? Again, this is one of the very few things that we'll do that doesn't have a game component to it, but it's one that I do appreciate, okay? Next is our fit and finish progression. This is another one of these drills that we'll do that really breaks things down into a few different pieces, and it lets the kids evaluate it themselves. Okay. It starts with just the hip roll. So really we kind of start at the end of everything, right? That last little, hip roll finish, put my body on body. Okay. So all we're going to look here, the coaching point in this is, have dead feet, right? Have those things screwed into the ground, and you are just trying to throw your hips through and lift this player as much as possible. Okay. If you're really throwing those hips through, the feet will come with you, right? And with young kids, that I think is always the hardest part, right? To get them to trust that, hey, just throw your hips and your feet will come, right? They always want to start with their feet. Okay. So you see our center here really just snapping those hips through, trying to kind of lift that bag on the angle as he goes. Okay. Next, what we'll do is we'll start him in a good fit, right? You take that two-man drive and essentially start in the same fit, but now in a one-on-one situation. Okay. Now we'll just work right in a straight line, give him the finish call, have that little bit of hip roll finish to the drill. Okay. And then you'll finish it. This is really as you get, you put the whole drill together, right? Now what we're going to do, I'll be standing behind this offensive player telling the defender which way I want him to go, okay? And what he's simulating is that defensive lineman trying to shed and make the tackle, right? So that defender is really what's taking you to the ball, right? You don't know where the ball is necessarily as the O-lineman, okay? With this being our center, if we're running a dive scheme, right, our running back could really end up on either side of him in a hurry here, okay? And so he's having to react to what that defender does. And what you'll see him do is really work that hip and try to skate as square as possible to maintain cover on that defender. I think that's something that is a big key to offensive football, right? Defense is all about setting edges, right? Working half the man and set the edge here, right? Offense has to be about cover, right? If we're working on edges of players, okay, aren't we essentially accomplishing the defense's goal for them, right? We want to maintain as much cover as we possibly can on these guys. Okay, so here you'll see the drill that as that defender works right to our right, you're going to see the center really work that hip over and skate as square as he can. And now as soon as he gets into that drive, he's going to try to, once he feels like, hey, I've caught back up to it, right? I've got good cover. Now I'd get it going vertical again, and that's where I want to finish with my hips up onto that defender, okay? This is a good drill to teach through all three phases of the game and be able to really break it down for these kids, okay? Here's just a quick example of it. You've got your head up two technique. You're going to see the left guard is really just going to get into a good fit. We actually end up throwing the goal line fade here. But what you'll see, we're on the 4-yard line, and you're going to see heels of the D lineman in the end zone, right? That's about all I can ask for out of my guys. So, gets into the good fit, right, through the movement phase, and then you see the little bit of hip roll there at the end to just finish it, okay? All right, next is a leverage drill. I think it's important that we teach our guys how to win from a defeated position, right? How to start off maybe not necessarily in the best position and to get themselves to better leverage. Okay. Leverage, I think, is a funny thing. You've heard the coaching adage, right? Low man wins 1,000 times, right? I think that was probably the first line wrote in the coach's Bible, right? And I agree with it to a certain extent. Here's my problem with the low man wins adage, right? Wouldn't the Buckeyes recruit a lot more 6-foot offensive linemen if the low man always wins, right? Well, they don't, okay? So the theory that I have is that, it's not necessarily the low man that wins, but you have to win a couple different leverages, right? You got to win hip leverage and you got to win hand leverage, okay? That'll be any wrestler that's ever done it will tell you that those two things are what matters most, right? And so what we're looking for in this drill, we're going to have one player start in really bad position, right? His base is narrow. He's got no bend in his body. His hands are not engaged, okay? You've got another kid down there in his fit, okay? And we'll just work back and forth down this board, and it gives, you know, player, I'll call him player 1 and player 2 here. You know, player 1 gets to start the drill, gets to kind of work through that movement phase of being in a fit, right? And then what player 2 has to do on the reset is to reset his hip leverage and his hand leverage, right? And so now you see that the hips went from, you know, you take the drill back a little bit, you've got hips there versus there, right? Fast forward a little bit, and now you've got, you know, hips there versus, you see where we're resetting that hip leverage, okay? And then they'll just go back and forth. We'll give you another example here, right? A little bit slowed down so you can see it here. Just the way that they'll kind of work themselves back and forth, reset the leverage, right? Drive them down, reset the leverage, drive them back. And you're just kind of working that flow back and forth, back and forth. Really easy drill to get all your linemen involved at once. Okay. Now, the example that you're going to see here, you're going to see our right tackle work. And as he works this base block, he gets really good hip leverage, okay? His hands miss, okay? So he starts this drill with really poor hand leverage. But what you'll see is that as the rep goes on, he's actually going to fight for hand leverage while maintaining his hip leverage and drive throughout the entire drill. Okay, so you see as he comes off the ball, the hips, you know, good leverage there, but you can see that constant fight with the left hand to regain that hand leverage, right? You've got to be able to use those extremities independently of each other, right? Just because I missed with one area doesn't mean I completely screwed up the block, right? Just fix that one piece of it, okay? I promise you, once your offensive linemen start correcting their own little mistakes out on the field in mid play, man, you're going to feel like the best O-line coach ever, right? Because it really is. There's nothing cooler than seeing your kids start in a bad position, but have the tools to get it fixed in the middle of the rep. Okay, our fight pressure drill is another one of those good drills because it works a lot of different areas. Okay, what this drill is simulating is an offensive lineman, right, being squeezed into a gap, right? So, you know, you think about zone football, and if this is our right tackle and he's working through that open B gap, right, what we see a lot are those wrong arm DNs want to really squeeze that hip down and essentially close the B gap by putting that offensive tackle in the B gap, right? And so what we're working through this drill is our ability to really start that zone, but stab that foot in the ground here and lean back into that defender so I don't get washed, okay? It's a good drill. We do it a couple different ways. You know, if we have tackles up, a lot of times we'll put them right on their hip and simulate that DN, squeezing them straight laterally. With our interior guys, we might put a 3 technique more on the angle through that shoulder, right? And just simulating kind of that attack that they see a little bit more. But you're trying to always accomplish the same thing, okay? We'll work down this board, and we'll fight that pressure down the board. Then once we get about 2 yards downfield, this defender will disengage. And now, again, right, this is where we start comboing a few different things. You're going to go get that second level fit, right? Work your linebacker fits, and we'll do it a bunch of different ways. Okay, really for this drill, you're just going to get that linebacker kind of walking downhill into it. Hey, if it's a day that you feel like you really need to thump them, start that linebacker back at 8 yards and have them come downhill and meet them. You know, if you're going to run a bunch of outside zone, have that linebacker start over here and run laterally. You know, if it's more an inside zone path, have them start here, but work on the angle, right? Whatever you need to get done based on what you got in game plan wise, you can make this drill, you know, serve whatever purpose you need so you can get those second level fits. Okay. pretty good example, right? That tackle's trying to lean back into it. He'll go and fit. I think you get a better example out of our center here. You really see that big stab with that left foot and him lean back and fight the pressure of that defender, okay? Same deal, he'll come get the fit on the second level, okay? Game clip of it, I'm gonna take that same exact player, our center here. What you'll see, he's got this backside shade as he zones through to 17, okay? And you'll see him really stab that left foot in the ground and lean back into the shade. And what it'll do is it'll keep that A gap, right, from getting washed, okay? It allows our running back to really get the ball and put it right on that aiming point. And it allows him to press that aiming point a little bit longer because the center's not getting washed. Okay, you see it there. You can really see that center lean back into that and how it prevents him from getting washed. So now look at really the expansion that you're able to create in the A gap there. Okay, you feel pretty good about that running the inside zone. Okay. All right. Our gap and pull drill is the next piece of it. Okay. You know, this is a great drill. It allows you to simulate every gap scheme that you're going to have going in that week against whatever look you need on defense. Okay. What I did here is I kind of set the drill up with a skeleton crew just to show you how few pieces you need to really get something out of it. And then obviously, you know, if you got the bodies, you know, hey, throw a couple front side guys in over here and, you know, work those combos, your front side combos as you go, okay? All we're gonna work here in this drill, you know, it gives us an opportunity to work some of those back blocks with our centers, right? I think that's always a tough one to find time for throughout the week. You know, it's hard to get your center a bunch of back blocks if that's not something that everybody else is doing, right? So this is a good way to get them reps at it. What we'll do is we'll tell this defender, you know, hey, we want you to be a penetrator, or hey, as you feel that back block, right, get over the top of it. You know, whatever you're going to see that week based on film study, you can get your center some reps of it here in this drill. Okay, we run a lot of the GT counter scheme. Okay, and so here you're going to see this guard's going to pull and work the kick out first, right? Your tackle's going to end up wrapping and inserting. Okay. So we'll watch the film here. The first one, you see an example, right? You kick it out, you insert up inside of it, okay? The next one, we're gonna spill with that DN. So that tackle's gotta go all the way around, fit outside of it, okay? Take some game reps. You know, this first clip, we're gonna be running our traditional guard tight end counter, okay? You'll see the guard gets the kick out, so the tight end's gonna fit up inside, right? These are all things that we've timed up throughout the week using our gap and pull drill, okay? Probably the thing that I think is coolest about this drill is, you know, you can use it as a, hey, let's get 10 guys in there and really, you know, work all these little elements. You can do it with kind of a skeleton crew. You can do it at full speed. You can tone it way back and just work on the footwork pieces of it, right? You can make this drill whatever you need it to be based on what you're going to see week to week. Okay, so this week we would have lined up a lot of 4 down front. We knew they were going to set the 3 to our tight end. Okay, so with that, you know, we're going to give this tackle a lot more looks where he was going to have a clear B gap, right, and still being disciplined enough to stay tight, right, in case this were to become a 3 technique where you can fit into that combo, right? We would have got him a lot of looks at this throughout the week using our gap and pull drill. Okay. Your next look here, we're going to be running our GT counter scheme, just like you saw in the clip, right? And we're going to get the kick out so our tackle will fit up inside of it. Okay. Take another one. This week we were running trap against Ohio Dominican. Okay. So, you know, we would have set this drill up with this squeeze front, right? Let that tight end get some work gapping down. Let that guard pull and kick out an overhang, right? A little longer pull than he's been used to getting, okay? So we would have used that drill to get him a bunch of good reps at this stuff. All right, you know, one more example here. I think we're running guard tackle, or I'm sorry, our guard tight end counter over here to the left, but you're going to see a log block this time, right? You know, Alderson Broadus, we knew that those DNs wanted to be wrong arm spill guys, okay? So we would have got more work with the log stuff. Just whatever you need to work throughout the week. This is a great drill to simulate every gap scheme that you're going to run, okay? The next piece of it is our inside footwork piece. This is something that we use anytime that I'm not getting help from that piece inside of me, right? Where if that defender is very tight to my body, I have to be able to use that inside footwork to ultimately dig that piece out. Or if it does want to cross my face, washing it vertically instead of laterally, okay? So what you'll see here, you know, you've got this drill set up. A traditional base block would tell us, you know, hey, we're going to be 1, backside leg through, right? 2, okay? Inside footwork says we're just going to go the opposite, okay? So we're actually going to lead by going vertically with that inside foot, and then the backside leg, depending, you know, what this defender does, reacts from there, okay? Now, the coaching point with this, we really want these guys trying to get that inside foot going vertical. This is not a great clip of it. What you'll see a lot of times is if you use the coaching point of get that foot going vertical, they'll pick it up and put it down, okay? When we first started doing this, the coaching point was, hey, pick it up and put it down and then react with the backside leg. Well, when you told them to pick it up and put them down, they'd drop it, right? So we said, okay, hey, I want you to go vertical. Well, now they pick it up and put it down, so you're getting what you originally wanted anyways, right? Okay, and then you see as that defender crosses his face, right, now the backside leg just reacts, okay, and he's able to wash it a little more vertically instead of having to react late to it by going 1, 2, and having to wash it flat, right? We're able to wash this thing a little more vertically, okay? And what I'll show you here, watching this right tackle, okay, is as it washes vertically instead of laterally, it makes that cut for your running back easier, right? Instead of having to work and then jump cut and get vertical, he's able to kind of just ride that wave, right into his vertical path. Okay, so watching that right tackle, the 5, you know, is going to cross his face, which I would imagine he anticipated. Just, you know, where this overhang is, right? And you're going to see him trying to start working that thing vertically instead of just slamming it all down laterally, okay? So you can see here where had we not thrown the RPO, that back would have been able to just kind of ride the wave and stay a little bit further away from that unblocked half. Okay, now here's an example, right? What you're going to see is we'll use inside footwork, but this defender is actually going to stay outside of us, okay? No big deal, right? We just react with the backside leg, the outside, the right leg in this example, right? We're just going to react with that. It stays outside. Okay, go attack it. Now, you know, you have to have an understanding that if you're going to do this stuff, right? If that tackle uses inside footwork and that defensive end stays outside of it, right? You're not going to get great cover, okay? For us, that's okay, right? As we work our dive scheme, our running back's aiming point, you know, is that play side A gap to backside. The ball ain't getting out there to the tackle, right? It's okay if that DN ends up getting upfield on his outside edge a little bit. I'm good with that, right? And you have to be good with that, right? If you're going to use this inside footwork stuff, okay? You can't expect your kids to be able to do both perfect, all right? All right, our board and chute progression. Here's what we did for this drill, just so it was a little bit easier to see. We took the chute out. Typically, we would do all this inside the chute, okay? Kind of a two-parter drill. We'll start off and we'll work that 2-step progression, just like we've been doing in some other drills, where you'll see our center here, you know, he'll work 1, reset, 1, 2, reset, and then go his full rep, okay? I'll just let it play here. Okay, you see 1, reset, 1, 2. Again, just let them get the comfort of feeling themselves doing it the right way, right? And they'll go all the way through. And then what we'll do is we'll line up a body across from them, say, hey, no 2-step, now full go, right? and you see them come through the chute and get into the contact portion of it, okay? For us, we use this drill more to coach through the movement and strike phase. So really, as they strike and drive, you don't see the hip roll, the finish to it. A lot of times that's just, if we're in the chute and those guys try to hip roll, they're tearing up our helmets. So those things get expensive to repaint. You know how it is. All right. All right, here's kind of your example in a drill. What I'm going to do is show you a few different angles of everything, okay? So to start here, we've got that really tight defender, almost like you see, in this example, where that guy's pretty much head up on you, okay? So this first example, you've got your 2 technique. This is our playoff game against Kutztown this year. You see that guard is able to get into a good fit. Now, that center, right, is in the combo with him, so he's protected inside. So that's why you're not going to see this kid use inside footwork, right? He's going to go ahead and still use play side footwork with this head up 2, knowing that the center is protecting his inside, okay? You see him get into the fit, right? We drive, all that stuff, okay? The next example here, you're going to see a little bit wider technique, okay? This is more of a mid-zone look here out of our center, okay? You're going to see him work to get into the fit of that 3 technique, right? You watch the feet of it. It's actually fundamentally really, really good with his feet into that fit, okay? A third example here, we're going to run a jet sweep of that tackle, right? That play side tackle, working more that outside zone angle. I think this is where it becomes big, right? As offensive linemen, whatever angle I set myself on, right? I own that angle throughout the drill. Okay, you see him owning the angle throughout, right? Now we roll up an ankle here to finish the drill, but you can see as through the movement phase of it, right? We own that angle that we set for ourselves. All right, the last piece of it, we'll add a second level component to this, okay? When we talk about second level fits, we want our guys rolling their hips, bringing the hips right on contact. The reason for that, you look at it, a lot of time those second level blocks are about half a second before the ball can spring, right? So we want to get cover right away. It's what we've found is that it's actually lowered the number of holding penalties we've gotten on the second level, just putting our hips right up onto that defender instead of having the space and, where those refs can see your hands. Okay, you'll see a good example here, right? As you roll the hips on contact at the second level, you can create some pretty good lift. Okay, really kind of finishing up run game here, and then I'll fly through the pass game. Our half-man combos, these are going to be more of our play side dive scheme combos. The big key to this, and I'll pause it right here, is that you want to get these guys where that foot that's on the defender is up, okay? Where we're still progressing as an O-line unit is once I get that foot up, keeping it there and galloping from there versus, continuing to cycle my feet and go from one foot in front of the other to once I have that foot that's on the defender, keeping it there the whole time, okay? The reason for that, you see as these two get that foot that's on the defender in front, right? Their hips are square, so they're pushing in the same direction, right? If you were to rewind this film just a little bit, when they've got that foot back, right? Now look at the hips. You're on angles, right? Where that double team is able to get split, okay? It's really key to get that foot in front and keep it there, okay? Now, I'd like to see our center kind of overtake this a little bit more and, again, maintain cover. Part of the drill, we were just working, getting off, fitting on backers, okay? Here's a pretty good example of it. What you'll see, and it's a little tough to see with the quarterback, but where you'll really see them create movement is once they both get, that center's right foot, that guard's left foot. Once they get those feet in front, is where you start to really get good movement out of that 2-eye, okay? Once that foot's in front, you're able to create the movement that you're looking for. Okay, and then you've got your post hammer combinations. I'm sorry, I'll go back here. really our post hammer combinations are what we're going to use more to simulate our mid or outside zone scheme type things. You know, here, what you're looking for, that inside player, right, is doing the exact same thing. He's posting through that inside half of the defender, but now your outside, your uncovered piece, instead of working to get into that fit through the outside half, he's actually going to open up a little bit more, and he's trying to overtake that same inside half that your covered player is currently blocking. Okay. Now, a couple keys with this, right? If you're that outside guy, what you got to remember is that this 3 technique has arms, right? So I better dip this outside shoulder and sink that shoulder down to be able to get that hand underneath that arm, right? As soon as that hand gets stuck on this back bicep, it's going to be really hard for us to get our eyes and body across this block, right? If I got to overtake that inside half, I better dip that back shoulder and come underneath his arms to get there. Okay, so you see a pretty good job of the left tackle there, dipping that back shoulder to come underneath that and overtake that half, okay? Here's your example, right? You're going to see these two are going to zone to the left there. A pretty good post hammer combination, right? Overtaking that same half. Okay. All right, pass game. It's not as long as the run game. I promise we'll get through this, okay? First one is our third of the 3 drills that we talked about that don't necessarily translate. This is one that our guys will do pre-practice on their own. You know, we'll teach independent and 2-hand strikes. They'll get out there early and whatever they want to work on, they'll grab a pop-up. It's a really good way. You just get a ton of strikes right in a row. Pretty low impact drill just to get some work. You can see them working kind of that external rotation with the independent hand strike. Okay. Next is into your set progression. The set progression, it's our way to work through all the different sets that we're going to use, the different angles that we're going to take, okay? We'll start it off, typically what we do is just move the defender right down the line, okay? We'll start them off pretty wide, especially with our tackles, right? And this will be, you know, we're simulating, hey, it's 5-step drop and our tackle's going to work more of a vertical set, okay? You know, and you can define it. I mean, as much definition as you want to give the drill, right? If, you know, you want these guys, hey, I want you taking man side sets or slide side sets or whatever you want, right? As long as you define it, you know, and you can get what you need out of the drill. So I think this day we just kind of gave the guys the free will of, hey, you're on the slide side, you're protected, go cover these guys up, okay? So you see him kind of working more that vertical angle. Okay, he chooses to go a double hand strike. That's fine, right? We'll use the double hand strike against bull rushers, right? We like using independent hands and using our length when we get the edge rushers a little bit more, okay? But you get through the set, right? Check your fit, okay? Take it to a game. You know, you've got the 6 technique on the tight end there, right? So the tackle is going to work his vertical set, right? Okay, there's your example there. The next, we'll tighten that defender up. This is kind of our base look for our guards and centers. Tackles, this is if we get a little bit tighter 5, right? Where I'm really just going to work that flatter angle and use our length and try to get on guys, okay? You'll see that translate. Our right guard here has got that tight 3 technique. You'll almost see him start the battle, you know, right there. Just takes his quick set, starts the fight right now. You know, we want to try to start that battle inside as quick as possible. Okay, the up kick. You know, this is if you don't take anything else away from this, I think this is probably the one thing to grab onto. I think this is probably the coolest thing that we're doing right now. I actually had an opportunity to learn this down at the Cool Clinic a couple years back. Right, Coach McNally came in and went through this technique. We had the opportunity as a staff to go down a couple weeks later to the Bengals OTAs for a couple days. So I got to see these guys drilling it and really implementing this technique. This has completely changed the way our interior offensive linemen play, okay? We only use this with our guards right now. I don't know, you know, maybe we'll progress with our tackles a little bit. I just like it a little bit more with our interior guys where things need to happen faster for them, okay? The gist of this technique is that it was a evolution off of the Howard Mudd jump set, right? It's a way to get on a defender really quick without selling run, right? Without, you know, having to completely get out of pass pro mode, right? What you're going to see in this technique, you know, you've got a left guard, so your stagger's got that left foot behind the right, okay? On the snap, what you'll see is that we're actually going to attack with that outside foot, okay? We attack with the outside foot and the outside hand. Now, the key to this is that the outside hand has to get to that outside logo area, okay? We talk about the logo area as the reference for that outside hand. As soon as that hand gets down the middle, you're toast, right? If you're not long enough to hit that outside pec, right, don't install this technique, okay? Because if you're down the middle of a guy, it's going to be a long day for you, okay? Now, you think about where I'm at once I've made contact, okay? So we're gonna just play the drill to initial contact. So you see the feet have essentially switched, right? The left foot actually gets a little bit in front of the right foot, right? Now, what happens a lot of times is that this defender sees that as an overset, right? So they're thinking, hey, take the inside move. Well, I think most offensive linemen would tell you it's a little bit easier to move with a defender when they're moving to whatever foot is back, right? Whatever to your stagger, okay? Well, you've just baited them into working to where your new stagger is, right? And so we're going to be able to flatten this thing off enough that we're not getting pried open to the quarterback, okay? Next piece that you'll see here is that backside hand kind of trails, right? The reason for that is that hand is reading out what this defender is going to do. If he does cross my face, I'm going to use that backside hand more as a clamp to give me time to get my hips over the top, right? And get myself back to where I feel like I have good cover on this defender, right? If that defender wants to stay outside of me, what you'll see is that hand will work more as a strike instead of a clamp, okay? And now if he wants to stay outside of me, that's fine, right? And what I'll do is I'll play the actual clip here. As this defender stays outside, that's okay. Just re-drop that foot and get right back to your original left-handed stagger, okay? So you hit it, he stays outside, just switch right back to your original stagger, right? Okay, here's your game example. Now, here's what I want you to try to see as you go through this. Try to take a look at the D lineman's feet in this, okay? What I'll try to pause it when we first make contact, and what you'll see, the defensive lineman hasn't even got his first step in the ground, and you've already made contact, right? So any kind of rush plan that 3 technique has, it's out the window, right? As soon as the ball is snapped, that guy's already got to get into his counter. You feel pretty good about the way your feet are set up, okay? I'll play it once so you see it. I'll rewind it, and I'll try to pause it right on the so right there, I mean, we've made contact, and you can see that defender really hasn't even moved his feet yet, okay? Now, he wants to stay outside. That's fine. Just re-drop that left foot, right? Get right back to your original left-handed stagger, okay? The next piece, we'll put a guy head up. We didn't see a ton of these 4 techniques last year. If we do, right, we're going to have to work that post to a vertical set. Where we saw it more was 2 techniques with our guards, which, you know, the way it worked, and they generally did play inside of us, where we just stayed on the post. You kind of see a late transition here where he's got to try to work back out, okay? All right, and then the last piece of it, your 4-eye, your Okie defense, you got to post. You know that guy's probably going to be inside of you. It would be the same for our guards with a shade or 2-eye, right? I know that I'm posting down. The big key, anytime that I'm working that post, you know, we always want to get full cover anytime that I'm working inside out, right? I've got to set foot to foot with that cat. I can't be foot down the middle of him, or else that's going to continue to allow him to rush the quarterback. Okay. Our Christmas tree sets are just a way to create a bunch of different movement, some of those transitions. So this is one of our tackles here that we had who was recovering from a pretty serious lower leg injury. So, you know, for him, right, we were trying to rebuild those transitions, right, of that flatter set back to a post, right, to a vertical set, just the different movement patterns he was going to see and trying to retrain those transitions through them all. Okay. You got two examples here. The first, you'll see our guard's going to post down to a nose. As the nose disappears, he's going to actually set back out. Okay. So that transition of going post to set, right? Post out to the set. Okay. Same thing. Now you've got a tackle. Okay. He's going to set and then have to immediately post with the cross face. All right. Quick set, post flat, right? Not dropping that inside foot. Okay. Keep everything flat. All right. That leads you into the near hand, near foot drill. Okay. Near hand, near foot is something that we do to try to train ourselves to stay square in pass protection. Okay. I know that they make fancy equipment for this drill. To be honest, we went to the Lowe's downtown and spent like $3 on a piece of PVC pipe, and it works just great for us. Okay. You know, we turn our hands over. It's not exactly what you'd want. It's close enough. Okay. So what we're going to do here, the defender is going to apply pressure with one hand or the other. Okay. As the offensive player, whichever side's getting pressure, I want to make sure that I'm trying to really stick that foot in the ground and press and fight pressure with pressure. Okay. And you'll see them just go back and forth, right? Nice and slow. And they're having to switch, and that's simulating that defender crossing my face and having to go from applying pressure with my left hand to my right, back to my left, right? I don't like seeing that pipe, you know, wobbling like that. We would prefer it to just go back and forth, but there's going to be a little bit of wobble as you go. Okay. What you'll see here is our tackle is going to post this 4-eye, who will eventually work outside of him. And the thing that I hope you take away from this clip is the strain of, okay, I'm posting. I got to press with that right hand. Oh, now it crosses my face. Now I have to strain with the left hand and try not to have that big drop with the left foot and left shoulder, right? I think that's what we're all trying to avoid as O-line coaches, is the big drop, right? As long as they're straining, yeah, do I wish he would have stayed more square through this? Yep, absolutely, right? But I can see the strain of him trying to press with that left hand to keep that left foot in the ground and not open it up. Okay. Bull recover is another one of those win from a defeated position, right? We're narrow, we're upright, our hands are outside. Okay. Being able to hop back, reset my hip leverage while resetting my hand leverage. And then a lot of times what we'll add is kind of that push-pull element of it, where, okay, now you got to transition and put your hips up on that defender. In a game, you watch, you know, the center is probably the better example of it here. You'll see as this bull rush starts, you're going to see him get right into that hop and really trying to reset the hip leverage. Okay, the guard, you know, he does a little bit better job. You see that left hand trying to re-stab in there as he hops, just resetting that hip leverage. Okay. All right, we talked earlier about training a couple different strikes, right? We use a multi-punch just to, you know, we'll set up a ton of different patterns. This is kind of the base. We'll work outside and work that high-low punch, right? We always want to work kind of a high hand and a low hand. That helps us create a little bit more surface area on the defender rather than having, you know, too high or too low, right? We always want that hand that's being rushed to be that high hand piece, right? That's what allows us to keep from that shoulder getting grabbed and getting jerked downwards, okay? So you'll see him go high-low there, right back to the middle where we'll simulate a bull rush, a two-hand strike, right to the post where I'll get my high-low just with the other way, and we'll switch our hands, okay? right? So pretty simple drill. You just kind of takes you through it. You can set up a million different patterns with it, have them do all kinds of stuff. What we'll do a lot of times is we'll set up that Christmas tree drill and have like a bag on one corner, a med ball on the next corner, another bag, another med ball. And as they go through it, they're getting the whole thing. Will combine those two drills a lot of times. Okay. All right. Taking you through just the examples. The first one's going to be your independent hand with the outside hand. Okay. This is another example as well of that up kick technique. Okay. A little clearer picture of the up kick, actually. You see him really attacking with that outside foot. And then because the defender stays outside, he goes ahead and redrops it, right? But you can see the independent hand action there, okay? The next look, this is a really tough clip to see. The easiest way to see this, just watch the elbows of the right guard and you'll see the left go and then the right, okay? Because he's gonna post down to this 2-eye. All right, I know that one's tough with the running back kind of in the way there, but you can just see it with the elbows, okay? All right, and then the last piece, right? Hey, number one, this mugged linebacker is just going to run right down the middle of us. That's fine, right? Just use your 2-hand strike and anchor on the bull rush, okay? 2 hands, anchor on the bull. All right, from there, we'll break down all the pass rush counters, okay? When we do pass rush counters, if it's O-line on O-line, we usually slow it way down. You know, you don't always get the best pass rush out of your other O-line, but this is a great one to go down and snag 1 or 2 D linemen. You know, if you can trade a couple guys for individual, if you have the ability to do that, this is a great drill. It lets those young defensive linemen work their pass rush moves, lets you work all your counters, okay? So the first counter you're gonna see is that higher long arm. So that defender really comes off the ball low and he's stabbing that single arm in on that upward angle, okay? As we get that, we're trying to still strike with the outside hand to keep ourselves square, and we're using that inside arm to lift at the elbow, okay? We'll flip over to a game rep. You watch the left tackle here. You're going to see him lifting at the elbow there, right? Does a nice job getting long with that left hand to try to keep himself a little more square as he lifts, okay? Now you get the lower or the flat long arm. That one we're going to try to knock down and swipe it down. You see a lot of these guys, right, especially at the next level, have gotten really good with that hand swipe, right? I don't know that our guys are all the way there yet, but certainly something that they're getting better at doing. I'm sorry, we'll play the drill here. You just see the quick swipe. This is another one. If you can swipe it with one hand while you're getting long with the other one, even better. Okay. This is an example, you know, I don't like that our guy here doesn't get that left hand in it because you see how turned he gets, right? I'd like to avoid that by sticking that left arm in there first on that outside logo. But you see the example of that inside hand, right? It's a flat long arm, so we're going to knock it down at the wrist, okay? Next is your rip counter. Defensive lineman gets a rip in on you. The best thing that we'll do is we're just going to try to clamp that elbow to the rib cage, right? Which, yes, I understand is holding, okay? And then we're going to really try to push on that hip. At that point, you're just trying to torque this guy up a little bit. I mean, you can see it even on our center here in the black long sleeve. As that guy really clamps his right elbow down and starts torquing on him with the left hand, you see the discomfort on his face. You know, you're just trying to torque those guys up there a little bit and ultimately try to hide your hands a little bit, okay? So what you'll see here is 49. This DN is going to work his inside move on our right guard. He gets the rip, and you see that right guard trying to really clamp that outside elbow while, you know, I wish that left hand was down on the hip, but you can see him trying to clamp with the right arm while he's trying to torque him up a little bit with the left. Okay, next we'll do a spin counter. Here's the thing, I think the easiest way to beat the spin is just being disciplined enough to let go, right? You know, if you're disciplined enough to let go, kind of play the piano across his back and refit yourself, that to me is the easiest way to counter the spin. Okay, you'll see the right guard here. As this cat gets into a spin, right? just takes the hands off, right? Plays them right across his back, resets the hands, and finishes the rep, okay? All right, and then we'll finish with a twist drill, right? Our twist drill is going to be used to simulate those first level twists. You'll see the TE here first, okay? The keys to picking up the TE for us. The guard, he has the penetrator in this. You've got to be able to shuck that guy flat, right? And protect that tackle's hip. If you're the tackle, you know, as soon as you smell the rat and feel like that's not a rush, right? Snap my eyes back around. If I have time, I'd love to see our tackles even post to protect their shoulder, okay? But here you see a pretty good example. That guard's going to shuck that thing flat, right? And now here's a piece that I found that has really helped us pick up these TEs, right? Because what you got to remember in this cone is simulating that center turning, right? The slide's going this way, okay? So that cone is where the center is. So you look, if we just play this drill, as soon as you shuck that penetrator, you got a long way to the center, right? A lot of times those DNs, if they really want to rush tight to the edge of that gap, right, they're going to beat you there with speed, right? They're usually a little better horse than the ones we got up front, okay? So I think it's a key piece that as soon as you throw that penetrator to post, right, get back to the middle of that gap, okay, where you're not having to try to post from one side of the gap all the way down to the other. Go ahead and post now and then react. You know, and it is a little counterintuitive. We talk a lot as O-line coaches about not giving defenders two-way goes, right? You know, I just think it's a little too hard to ask those kids to post against a DN that runs a 4.5, who he's going as fast as he can, and you got to post to try to keep up with him, right? I think that's a hard sell for these kids, okay? So you see him, right? He throws it, he posts, and now because that defender doesn't work all the way to the edge of the gap, he just sets right back out to him, okay? All right, here's your example. Now this will come out of a squeeze front, but you're gonna still get that TE look, okay? You see the quick shuck by the guard and then the immediate post, right? As soon as he throws it, he posts, okay? You see that tackle, as soon as he smells a rat, see the eyes start to snap and he grabs a hold of the penetrator, right? And pulls him to him, okay? Similar, now you've got your EN look, right? Where that N's going to be your penetrator, okay? When we get this, it's a lot of the same coaching points, right? Hey, tackle, you got to keep this thing flat and not let your guard get picked. Hey, guard, as soon as you smell a rat, you better snap your eyes around, okay? Now where it changes is we want our tackles to really sit on this end, okay? Deliver that thing all the way to the guard and double team it as long as possible, because you got time, right? As that nose has to work a long, long way to get back to the quarterback, right? Make sure we end the penetrator in this one, okay? You'll see a really good example of the right tackle. He'll deliver this end down to the guard, and you'll actually see the camera pan away before he ever comes off on the looper, right? You see him start to track the looper with his eyes, right? But he's going to stay right there in that double team until the very last second, right? Because you've got time. That looper is not going to make the sack, right? Okay. So that kind of finishes us up. Here's my contact information, right? If I know I had to start getting a little fast there, and I apologize for how much time I did take. But, you know, any questions, anything that I can do moving forward, you know, any help I can be, feel free to reach out. And, you know, I know myself or somebody on our staff, whether it's, you know, O-line play, whatever it is, we've got some awesome resources on our staff.